Well, I'm very excited to be doing this today, mostly because it's just a welcome change from spending lockdown with my three kids, um, who I love dearly, but I have a son who just turned 3 last week, and then I have a daughter who's 1.5, and I have an infant. So our house is busy, but lots of fun. So I'm gonna share with you guys a bit of my testimony, like Mary Claire asked, and I know I'm supposed to talk about motherhood, but I'm actually gonna start from when I was quite young and then kind of just share quickly about a few things because I actually feel that there's quite a bit that the Lord has done in my life that has prepared me for where I'm at now. And I think that's kind of how the Lord always works with us, is that He's constantly preparing us for what He has in store for us. So what He's doing, the work He's about in us right now is preparing us for something in the future. Um, so one of the most important things that the Lord has given me in my walk with Him has been the use of charismatic worship. Some of you might be familiar with that, some of you might not. But when I was kind of age P4 to P7, I went to a summer camp in the States every summer. Summer camps are like, I don't know what they look like here, but in the States, it's like summer camps are a big thing. So it was a week-long summer camp. You go, and we learned kind of all about this thing called baptism in the Holy Spirit and charismatic worship and walking with the Lord and praising Him and worshiping Him. And it added this really dynamic element to my walk with Christ that has been a huge part of my life ever since. And I first experienced that from a very young age. So the Lord has spoken to me frequently throughout my life, during times of charismatic worship. So I'll just leave that there. If you guys have questions about that, you can ask me about it at the end. The other thing that the Lord did in me when I was quite young is He placed a love for the city of Detroit on my heart. So originally I'm from Michigan, just outside of Detroit, from a little city called Ann Arbor. It's about half an hour outside of Detroit. I don't know what you guys have heard about Detroit or what you know about Detroit, but it used to be quite a massive, massive city. It was huge when the US started producing automobiles. There was a huge boom in the city, and then eventually it kind of all died out and the city became quite small, went from a population of 2 or 3 million to a population of like 500,000. And there's a lot of poverty in the city now. So when I was 12, 11 or 12, I started going down to the city. My mom would drive me, and I would go and I would spend time with some families that we knew in the city, and I would just serve them. Sometimes it meant cleaning their homes, sometimes it meant playing with their kids. But basically, from the age of 11 or 12, every summer, I started going down to Detroit, and I would just spend time there. And there was something about the Lord taking me out of my normal home environment to a place that was quite raw to show me what life looked like there. And He spoke to me a lot when I would go to Detroit. And it kind of became this place that every summer I would migrate there. And I think in a way, the Lord was drawing my heart there. And I knew that I wanted to go there and spend time there because I experienced the Lord in a very profound way there, which is interesting because later in life, He would call me to completely move country. And in a way, I can look back and see how His calling me to kind of leave home every summer to go into the city to work has strong parallels with Him eventually calling me to leave my home and move here and establish my home here. So Detroit played a huge, massive role in my life. And it's actually where I met my husband, oddly enough. So throughout all of university, I was still going back most summers to work in Detroit. And in the summer of 2011, I was there working in a summer program, and there was this guy from Clarkston in Glasgow who happened to be doing the same summer internship program I was doing. We met in the summer of 2011, and we quite liked each other. However, he was discerning life with a brotherhood of urban monks, basically. So we didn't do much about it because he was discerning religious life. So when we met in 2011, we became quite good pals, but that was kind of it. A few years later, he discerned that religious life in that manner wasn't for him, and he wanted to get married. And we ended up reconnecting, and now I'm here, and we have 3 kids. So I'll come back to that a little bit more in a bit, but just in terms of a timeline, that was 2011. I spent a lot of time. So I went to University of Michigan. I got a teaching degree, which I essentially kind of viewed as a degree in communication, learning how to take an idea and communicate it to somebody. And when I graduated from uni, I decided that actually I wasn't going to go into a normal teaching position. And that was for a variety of reasons. But through some discernment, I actually ended up working for a Christian nonprofit called Kairos. And I started a small project called the Lovely Commission, which was an online project and essentially was a project where we sought people out. We said, can you write about what the Lord is doing in your life? And we're going to just have this place online where we share it all. And it came out of a place of like working with a lot of youth and realizing that they were spending increasing amounts of time online, and a desire to kind of have a presence online that would point them towards Christ. So it was this sort of mustard seed project that we started kind of just doing a few hours a week. And the project grew and grew and grew until it had a really substantial following, and it turned into my full-time work. Within a couple of years, we had 20 to 30,000 folks who were following our work online. And we had a database of maybe like 50 to 60 contributors from around the world who were writing in, talking about what the Lord was doing in their life. This was like such a blessed and amazing time in my life, and I absolutely loved it because I just got to like sit and talk with people about what God was doing in their life for my work. That's just what I did. And during that time, I discerned that Andy and I were going to get married, and I was going to move here. That project came with me. And it was just really amazing that the Lord would give me a gift that used my degree in a sort of untraditional way, but that he said, look, I'm going to give this to you. I want you to do this work, Mary Rose. And I'm just going to kind of have it go a bit crazy and do some cool things with it. And you can take this with you when you move. It was a tremendous blessing to me. And it's still something that I really cherish. I don't work on the project anymore. I've handed it off, but I just really look at that and I see, wow, God just knew me and he took care of me so well, and he gave me this great gift, and what a blessing that was. So I kind of just glossed over that, but during that time when I was working on the Lovely Commission, Andy and I started dating, and I knew as soon as we started dating that I was going to have to discern whether or not to move country. And for the most part, I had lived within the same sort of 30 to 35 mile radius my entire life. So moving 3,500 miles somewhere else away from my family and friends was not something that I took lightly. I think there was a sort of like romantic part of me that was like, oh, I could like move to this cool country and marry this guy. But I think the reality I also knew in my heart was I'd be leaving my friends and family behind. And I come from a very, very close-knit family. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and a lot of my family back home is Cuban, and Latino families are very, very close-knit, sometimes too close-knit, but so it was quite a discernment process, I think. But the Lord really spoke to me clearly and kind of was saying, look, I have these things in store for you. And Mary Rose, look, I've been preparing you for this. And in the end, it actually wasn't a hard decision to make. And there was a few really cool moments that I can look back and really clearly see, like, yes, the Lord spoke to me there. The Lord spoke to me there. He made this discernment for me clear. And one of those was just like a small side story. So my mom and my grandparents and her siblings are all from Havana, Cuba. And they left Cuba sort of when Castro had just come into power. So my grandfather was involved in like loads of sort of anti-communist activity, and their life became quite difficult to the point where they knew they had to flee the country. And for just a very small window of time, there was an agreement between the Cuban and U.S. governments that the U.S. government would take in a certain amount of refugees from Cuba. And by some miracle of God, the government came to my grandparents' house one day and they said to my grandfather, look, we'll let your wife and your kids leave, but you can't leave. You have to stay here. So if you let them go, you'll never see them again. So they got on a plane and they left. And it was about a year and a half that my grandma was in the US with her girls. When one day, again, total miracle of God, the government came to my grandfather and said, look, we'll let you go. And he was able to flee the country as well. So they have a pretty crazy story of like what God has done to like literally save them from pretty dire circumstances. And it was no small thing for me to go to my grandparents and say, to say, look, I think I'm going to move, because essentially what you're saying is, I'm not going to be here to see you in the late stage of your life. And for my grandparents, like our family is really important. So I was pretty fearful of what they would say. And I went to them and I said, look, I think I'm going to do this. I think this is what the Lord has for me. And my grandpa looked at me and he said, Mary Rose, like the Lord called us to leave everything behind, to forsake everything, and to trust in him. Why do you think your call would be any different? And I was like, okay. Yeah, okay, you're right. I forget that you have a really strong faith, stronger than mine right now. And but that wasn't just my grandfather speaking to me. That was Christ speaking to me and saying, look, Mary Rose, this is hard, but your family's behind you. And so, yeah, so that happened. Then eventually in 2016, we got married and I moved. And so I've been here for about 4.5 years. And in that time, it's been crazy. I've changed jobs, we've moved houses. My husband finished his master's at Glasgow Uni. He started a charity, and we've had 3 kids. And it's been a bit manic at times, I'm not gonna lie. But through it all, I think we definitely see the Lord's hand on our life and what we're doing. And it's just, I think I view motherhood as sort of the project that the Lord has given me to work on right now. And I can definitely 200% say that this is definitely what the Lord had for me, because the amount of like personal growth and call to holiness, like this is my road to holiness, motherhood, and marriage. And that's hard, but it's really beautiful. And this is the work that the Lord has given me to do right now in this time in my life. Every day, I have to wake up and I have to think about, how am I going to love my kids the way that Christ loves them? And a lot of times I feel like I am like not equipped to do that. But I get up every day, I ask for the grace to love my kids, to be Christ to them, to teach them about Christ. And the Lord gives me what I need, step by step, day by day. And it's the same with our marriage. But it's really cool to see, like, the Lord gives you a vocation, and he doesn't just like drop you there and say, all right, good luck. He's with you in it. He like gives you a vocation and he says, right, today, this is going to be the thing that's hard, but I'm right here with you and I'm going to walk with you and I'm going to give you the grace. And look, I know it's hard too. And yeah, like these things that are breaking your heart and are hard for you, they're breaking my heart too. And they're hard for me too. And I think that like to have a God to serve and to walk with who is so closely in tune with our life is miraculous and amazing. And it's a deep comfort to me too to know that he loves my kids far better and more deeply than I ever will. And the best thing that I can do as a mom is point my kids towards God. So I try to do that in small ways, you know, like we were just kind of getting the hang of showing my kids like the different parts of mass and like during the consecration, like, look guys, like that's Jesus and like these things. Now we're having to do that over a computer, you know, so we're like it's really hard with kids, you know, but we're adjusting and we're learning and we're trying to teach our kids the Our Father right now and trying to teach them like how to say prayers of gratitude and who are you thankful for and who do you love and each time, like honestly, we do things like that. And I think this is also the Lord telling me, right, Mary Rose, what are you grateful for? Right, Mary Rose, why do you say the Our Father? And what do the words of the Our Father mean? And what's going on in Mass right now, Mary Rose? Are you paying attention? So, yeah, just as an encouragement, I don't know like where you guys are at in terms of like your calls and discerning the Lord's call in your life and your vocation, but like take courage and have faith because whatever it is, the Lord will be with you in it. And he will reveal it to you as well. Like it's not some thing that's like really deeply hidden and will be really hard for you to find. The Lord will speak clearly and he reveals these things to us. And he's done that in my life. And even now, like just in terms of me preparing for this testimony and to talk about what God's doing in my life, there was little things that I can look back on and say, yeah, actually, me making those trips to Detroit every summer was preparing me to leave home and was saying to me, Mary Rose, I have a different place called home. So yeah, it's not so much a sharing about motherhood, I suppose, because I don't view motherhood as how do I say this well? I don't view motherhood as the defining thing of my life. The defining thing of my life is that I'm a daughter of Christ. And what my life is about is walking with Christ and pursuing Christ and getting to heaven and bringing as many people as I can with me. And right now, where I'm at in my life is that I'm not doing, you know, a crazy cool online project where I'm working with all these people to talk about their walk with Christ. And I'm not going to Detroit every summer. Right now, the Lord is saying, Mary Rose, here's 3 people that I'm going to put in your care. And I need you to feed them and nurture them. And I need you to point them towards me. And I need you to show them who I am. And sometimes that's challenging for me. There's some things about motherhood that I find sometimes are hard, but the Lord is also saying, Mary Rose, this is how you're going to become more holy right now. And that I can get behind, you know. And it is fun. There are a lot of things about motherhood that are fun. My kids are really funny. They're also my main point of social contact right now. So that might be a bit, other people might not find them as funny as me, but yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm pursuing the Lord. I'm trying to point my kids towards God. And Andy and I are trying to do that together. We're trying to raise our kids well and point as many people towards Christ as we can.